What separates companies that remain average from those that become legendary? What allows certain leaders to take ordinary teams and transform them into world-class performers? Welcome to the Leadership Code, where we break down the world's most powerful books on leadership, communication, and personal growth. If you're here, it means you care about becoming the kind of leader who inspires trust, drives results, and creates lasting impact. Join us, subscribe, and tap the bell icon, because every week we drop audiobook-style summaries packed with lessons you can put into action right away. Today, we're diving into Good to Great by Jim Collins, a book that changed how the world thinks about leadership and organizational excellence. Jim Collins isn't just an author. He's one of the most respected business thinkers of our time. A Stanford researcher turned author, he and his team spent 5 years analyzing over 1,400 companies to discover why a small handful made the leap from being merely good to truly great, and sustained that greatness for at least 15 years. His findings have guided CEOs, entrepreneurs, and leaders around the world for more than 2 decades. This book is structured into 9 chapters, each uncovering a principle that moves companies and individuals from mediocrity to greatness. From level 5 leadership and getting the right people on the bus, to confronting brutal facts, focusing on the Hedgehog Concept, building a culture of discipline, leveraging technology as an accelerator, and understanding the Flywheel effect. Every chapter gives you a clear, actionable framework for long-term success. By the end of this summary, you'll understand the mindset, discipline, and strategy behind companies like Walgreens, Kimberly-Clark, and Wells Fargo that went from good to great, and how you can apply these same principles to your own leadership journey. So, if you're serious about growing as a leader, building a thriving team, or transforming your business, this is your space. Subscribe to the Leadership Code, hit the bell so you never miss an insight, and let's discover what it really takes to go from good to great. Chapter 1. Good is the enemy of great. Good is the enemy of great. That's how Jim Collins opens this book, and it's one of the most powerful ideas you'll ever hear as a leader. This chapter lays the foundation for the entire book. Collins argues that most organizations and most people don't become great because they settle for being good. Good feels comfortable. Good feels safe. But good also keeps us from pushing for greatness. Think about it. Good jobs prevent people from chasing great careers. Good relationships prevent people from building extraordinary ones. Good companies are satisfied with being above average, so they never take the bold steps required to be excellent. Collins and his research team studied 1,435 companies over 40 years and found only 11 that made the leap from being just good to being truly great and sustained that greatness for at least 15 years. Companies like Walgreens, Kimberly-Clark, and Abbott Laboratories didn't rely on luck or quick wins. They followed a consistent pattern of disciplined decisions that propelled them to greatness. Here's the key takeaway. Greatness doesn't happen by accident. It's a matter of choice and discipline. You have to decide that good is not good enough. One of my favorite modern parallels is Apple under Steve Jobs. In the late 1990s, Apple was good enough to survive, but it was far from great. Jobs returned, cut the product line, focused on what Apple could be best in the world at, and launched a series of innovations, the iMac, iPod, and eventually the iPhone, that transformed Apple into one of the greatest companies in history. Jobs wasn't satisfied with good design or good technology. He was obsessed with greatness. So what does this mean for you as a leader, entrepreneur, or learner? First, ask yourself, where in my life or business am I settling for good enough? Second, Get honest. What's holding me back from pursuing greatness? Is it fear, comfort, or lack of clarity? Finally, take one step today. Commit to excellence in one small area, a project, a relationship, a daily habit. Greatness is built brick by brick through consistent, intentional choices. Collins reminds us that good can be the biggest roadblock to great because it makes you complacent. If you want to build a company, a career, or a life that truly stands out, you have to reject good enough and relentlessly pursue greatness. This isn't about chasing perfection, it's about refusing mediocrity. Greatness is possible, but only if you choose it. And that's where the journey from good to great begins. Chapter 2. Level 5 Leadership. Great companies don't just happen, they are built by great leaders. And Jim Collins calls these rare individuals Level 5 leaders. In this chapter, Collins introduces one of his most famous findings, the concept of Level 5 leadership. These are leaders who combine personal humility with fierce professional will. They're not the loud, charismatic visionaries you might expect. In fact, they're often quiet, humble, and even shy. But don't mistake humility for weakness. Level 5 leaders are relentless about building something bigger than themselves. Instead of focusing on ego, they focus on results. They channel their ambition into the company, not into personal fame. And when things go right, they give credit to others. When things go wrong, they take responsibility. Collins shares the story of Darwin Smith, CEO of Kimberly-Clark. When he took over, the company was struggling. Smith made a bold decision to sell the company's paper mills, its core business at the time, and invest in consumer paper products like Kleenex and Huggies. Wall Street thought he was crazy. But over the next 20 years, Kimberly-Clark outperformed Procter & Gamble and became the #1 paper-based consumer products company in the world. Smith wasn't flashy. He didn't care about fame. But he had the courage to make hard decisions and the humility to credit his team for the results. That's Level 5 leadership in action. So, how do we apply this lesson in our own lives? Lead with humility. Focus less on being seen as the hero and more on building something that lasts. Take responsibility. When mistakes happen, own them. When success comes, share the credit. Be courageous. Make decisions based on what's best for the mission, not your ego. Level 5. Leadership is not about personality. It's about character. It's about putting the mission above yourself and building greatness that outlives you. Jim Collins puts it perfectly. Level 5. Leaders are ambitious, first and foremost for the company, not for themselves. So ask yourself, are you leading for your own glory, or are you building something that will still stand long after you're gone? That choice might be the difference between being good and being truly great. Chapter 3. First who, then what? What's the first step in building a great company or a great life? Most people think it's having a bold vision or a perfect strategy. Jim Collins says, not so fast. First who, then what? This chapter delivers one of the most practical and powerful principles in the entire book. Collins discovered that great companies didn't start by asking, where are we going? They started by asking, who do we want on the bus? The leaders of the good to great companies focus first on getting the right people in key positions and getting the wrong people off the bus before they ever decided what direction to drive it. Why? Because when you have the right people, they'll figure out the right strategy. Collins gives the example of Wells Fargo during deregulation in the banking industry. While competitors tried to predict the future and plan strategy around market shifts, Wells Fargo focused on hiring and retaining the best talent, people who could adapt to whatever came next. As a result, they outperformed their peers, no matter what the environment threw at them. This principle applies beyond business. Imagine building a sports team. If you get the right players first, disciplined, skilled, and passionate, you can adapt your playbook as the game changes. But if you have the wrong players, even the perfect strategy won't save you. So what does this mean for leaders, entrepreneurs, and even everyday relationships? Prioritize people over plans. Hire and surround yourself with individuals who are capable, values-aligned, and driven. Act decisively on personnel decisions. If someone is not a fit for the mission, make the tough call early. Empower the right people. Once they're on the bus, trust them to help choose the direction. Collins reminds us, great vision without great people is irrelevant. The right people don't need to be tightly managed or fired up. They are self-motivated and aligned with the mission. If you want to build something truly great, don't just obsess over strategy. Obsess over who's on your bus. Because once the right people are on board, the what, the vision, the plan, the execution becomes so much easier. Friends, if you found value in this audiobook summary, I'd love for you to subscribe to the Leadership Code. Join our growing community of leaders and learners, and let's keep unlocking powerful lessons together. Chapter 4. Confront the brutal facts, yet never lose faith. What do great leaders and great companies do differently when faced with hard truths? They don't hide from reality. They confront it head-on. In Chapter 4, Jim Collins introduces one of the most crucial principles for turning good into great. Face the brutal facts, yet never lose faith. The idea is simple but powerful. To make great decisions, you must first start with the truth, no matter how painful or uncomfortable it may be. Good to great companies created a culture where facts were heard, not silenced. They encouraged open dialogue, honest debate, and reality-based decision-making. One of the most famous examples is Admiral Jim Stockdale, a U.S. Navy officer who survived 8 years as a prisoner of war in Vietnam. He endured torture, isolation, and uncertainty, yet never gave up hope of eventual victory. Collins calls this the Stockdale paradox. The ability to confront brutal reality while simultaneously holding unwavering faith that you will prevail in the end. In business, this means acknowledging tough market conditions, poor results, or even internal failures, but refusing to give in to despair. For example, Pitney Bowes, one of Collins' good-to-great companies, faced intense competition but dealt honestly with their challenges, realigned their business, and kept faith that they would emerge stronger. So how do we apply this in leadership and life? Create a climate where truth is heard. Encourage people to speak up, share data, and challenge assumptions without fear. Lead with questions, not answers. Ask what's really happening here, instead of jumping straight to solutions. Balance realism with hope. Acknowledge problems clearly, but communicate belief in a better future. Collins says, you must maintain unwavering faith that you can and will prevail in the end, regardless of the difficulties, and at the same time, have the discipline to confront the most brutal facts of your current reality. For leaders, this is the difference between denial and disciplined optimism. Ignoring reality destroys companies. Facing it honestly while holding on to faith and purpose is what turns good into great. Chapter 5. The Hedgehog Concept. Simplicity within the 3 circles. What do foxes and hedgehogs have to do with building great companies? Quite a lot, according to Jim Collins. In Chapter 5, Collins introduces one of the most famous ideas from good to great, the Hedgehog Concept. He borrows from an ancient Greek parable. The fox knows many things, but the hedgehog knows one big thing. The fox is clever and crafty, always trying new tricks to catch the hedgehog, but the hedgehog does one thing perfectly: curl up into a spiky ball. And that one thing always works. Great companies, Collins discovered, act more like hedgehogs than foxes. They focus relentlessly on one simple, powerful concept: the intersection of three critical circles. 1. What you can be the best in the world at, and just as important, what you cannot be the best at. 2. What drives your economic engine, the key metric that fuels sustained profitability. 3. What you are deeply passionate about, what truly ignites your team. When a company finds its hedgehog concept, it stops chasing distractions and aligns all efforts toward that one thing. Collins gives the example of Walgreens. Instead of trying to be everything to everyone, they focused on being the most convenient drugstore with the most accessible locations and a high profit per customer visit. That focus led them to outperform the stock market by a factor of 15 over decades. This idea isn't just for companies. It works for individuals too. Think about what you do best, what creates the most value, and what you love doing. Your sweet spot, your hedgehog concept, lies where those three overlap. Here's how to apply it right now. Clarify your strengths. Identify what you or your team can realistically be the best at, and drop what you can't. Find your economic engine. Focus on the key metric that drives results, whether it's profit per customer, engagement rate, or revenue per hour. Reconnect with passion. Align your work with what truly energizes you, because passion fuels discipline and perseverance. Collins reminds us that greatness comes not from complexity, but from simplicity and focus. Like the hedgehog, find your one big thing and execute on it with consistency and discipline. When you get this right, decisions become easier, distractions fade away, and momentum builds. That's the power of thinking like a hedgehog. Chapter 6. A Culture of Discipline. Focus without discipline is just wishful thinking. In Chapter 6, Jim Collins shows us that once you discover your hedgehog concept, the next step is building a culture of discipline, one of the key ingredients that separates good companies from truly great ones. Here's the big idea. Great companies don't rely on bureaucracy, micromanagement, or endless rules to stay on track. Instead, they hire self-disciplined people, give them freedom within a clear framework, and trust them to do what needs to be done. Collins calls this a dual culture, one that combines entrepreneurial energy with disciplined execution. It's not about having control over every little action. It's about creating an environment where the right people hold themselves accountable because they're aligned with the mission. Take Nucor, for example, a steel company that became one of the most profitable in its industry. Nucor had a lean corporate office, empowered workers on the factory floor, and created a pay-for-performance system where employees' earnings were tied directly to results. There was no need for bureaucracy because the culture itself encouraged discipline and ownership. Collins emphasizes 4 key elements for building a culture of discipline. 1. Disciplined people. Get the right people on the bus, from Chapter 3, so you don't have to manage them tightly. 2. Disciplined thought. Stay focused on your hedgehog concept and refuse to chase distractions. 3. Disciplined action. Take consistent, methodical steps. Don't rely on heroic bursts of effort. 4. A stop-doing list. Just as important as what you do is what you stop doing. Great companies ruthlessly eliminate activities that don't fit the hedgehog concept. For leaders, the lesson is clear. You don't need more rules, you need more alignment and self-management. Here's how you can apply it. Empower your team. Give them autonomy within a clearly defined vision. Create systems, not bottlenecks. Let discipline live in the culture, not just in management approvals. Audit your focus. Ask, what should we stop doing that's wasting time, energy, or resources? Collins says that when you combine a culture of discipline with an obsession for your hedgehog concept, you get a magical result. Consistent greatness without chaos. That's what turns short-term wins into long-term momentum. Friends, if you found value in this audiobook summary, I'd love for you to subscribe to the Leadership Code. Join our growing community of leaders and learners, and let's keep unlocking powerful lessons together. Chapter 7. Technology Accelerators. Technology is powerful, but according to Jim Collins, technology alone does not make a company great. In Chapter 7, he introduces an important idea. Technology is an accelerator, not a creator, of greatness. Good to great companies didn't jump on every tech trend or innovation that came along. They didn't adopt technology out of fear of being left behind. Instead, they carefully selected technologies that aligned with their hedgehog concept and used them to accelerate momentum they had already built. Collins points out that great companies think differently about technology. They ask, does this technology make us even better at what we can be the best in the world at? If the answer is yes, they invest heavily. If not, they ignore the noise. Even if competitors are chasing the latest shiny object. For example, Walgreens didn't just add technology for the sake of being modern. They invested in online prescription refills and digital convenience tools only when they realized it would make their hedgehog concept, being the most convenient drugstore, even stronger. This focus helped them stay ahead of the competition while staying true to their mission. On the other hand, Collins notes that many comparison companies that failed to go from good to great often chase technology as a quick fix, hoping it would save them. But without discipline and direction, technology only sped up their decline. So what's the lesson for leaders, entrepreneurs, and even individuals? Be strategic, not reactive. Don't adopt a tool just because it's trendy. Adopt it because it serves your mission. Use tech to amplify your strengths. Focus on solutions that make you better at your core purpose. Ignore the hype. If a technology doesn't fit your hedgehog concept, it's a distraction. Say no. Collins puts it best. Technology by itself is never a primary cause of either greatness or decline. It's the disciplined way you use it that matters. So if you want to go from good to great, stop asking what's the hottest tech right now and start asking which technology will make us unstoppable at what we're best at. That's how you turn tools into true accelerators of greatness. Chapter 8. The Flywheel and the Doom Loop. How do companies make the leap from good to great? The answer, Jim Collins discovered, isn't one big dramatic move. It's a process. In Chapter 8, Collins introduces one of his most powerful metaphors, the flywheel. Picture a massive, heavy flywheel. It takes an incredible effort to get it moving at all. Push after push, it barely seems to budge, but with each consistent push in the same direction, the flywheel gains momentum. Soon, it begins to turn faster and faster, until it's spinning on its own almost effortlessly. Great companies build greatness this way, not through a single breakthrough event, but through a series of small, disciplined actions consistently applied over time. There's no single miracle moment. Instead, greatness is the result of cumulative momentum. Collins contrasts this with what he calls the doom loop. When companies try to skip the hard work of disciplined action and look for quick fixes. They constantly launch new programs, change direction, bring in flashy leaders, or jump on fads, but never build sustained momentum. Instead of moving forward, they spin in circles and burn out their teams. Take Walgreens as an example again. They didn't transform overnight. They made one smart decision after another, always aligned with their Hedgehog Concept, until one day the results became undeniable. Investors and competitors called it a breakthrough, but in reality, it was the result of years of steady flywheel turns. So what can leaders, entrepreneurs, and individuals take from this? Focus on consistency over intensity. Small, smart decisions made repeatedly build unstoppable momentum. Stop looking for one big leap. Greatness is a process, not a single moment of inspiration. Beware of the doom loop. Don't change direction impulsively. Stay disciplined until you build traction. Collins says it best. There is no single defining action, no grand program, no one killer innovation. It was the accumulation of consistent, coherent pushes on the flywheel that led to breakthrough results. So ask yourself, are you steadily pushing your flywheel, building momentum day after day? Or are you stuck in the doom loop, starting over every time you get frustrated? The difference could be what takes you from good to truly great. Chapter 9. From good to great, to built to last. What happens after you go from good to great? Do you stop, celebrate, or keep going? In the final chapter, Jim Collins bridges good to great with his earlier book, Built to Last, exploring how companies not only achieve greatness, but sustain it for generations. Here's the big idea. The real measure of greatness isn't just hitting a breakthrough, it's building something that endures beyond you. Great companies use their momentum not just to generate profits, but to create a purpose-driven enterprise that continues to thrive long after their original leaders are gone. Collins reminds us that the good-to-great companies didn't think of greatness as a finish line. Instead, they used it as a platform for building a company with a timeless core ideology, values, and purpose that never change, while simultaneously encouraging constant innovation and progress. Think about companies like Procter & Gamble or Johnson & Johnson, which have survived leadership changes, market crises, and technological revolutions. Their secret isn't clinging to the past. It's preserving their core values while continuously adapting everything else. This principle applies beyond business. True greatness in leadership is leaving behind something that lasts, a culture, a team, a legacy that thrives without you. So, how can we apply this lesson? Clarify your core values. What do you stand for that should never change? Encourage progress. Be willing to adapt strategies, processes, and products, but stay true to your mission. Think generationally. Build systems and cultures that empower future leaders, not just today's goals. Collins ends with this challenge. Don't settle for just going from good to great. Aim to create something that will last. Because greatness that ends with you is temporary. Greatness that endures becomes a legacy. Good to great. Final wrap-up and leadership challenge. We've just taken a powerful journey through Jim Collins' Good to Great. 9 chapters that reveal exactly how ordinary companies make the leap to greatness and stay there. Here's what we learn. Good is the enemy of great. The first step is deciding that good enough will never be enough. Level 5 leaders combine humility with fierce determination, putting mission above ego. First who, then what reminds us to get the right people on the bus before deciding where to drive it. Confront the brutal facts teaches us to face reality honestly, while holding unwavering faith that we will prevail. The Hedgehog Concept focuses us on the intersection of passion, skill, and economic engine. are one big thing. A culture of discipline shows that freedom and responsibility work together when you have the right people and the right focus. Technology accelerators remind us to use tech as a tool, not a crutch, choosing only what strengthens our core. The flywheel effect proves that greatness is built through consistent, focused action, not a single miracle moment. And finally, from good to great to built to last, challenges us to create organizations, teams, and legacies that endure for generations. Together, these principles form a roadmap for building something that truly matters, whether it's a company, a career, or a life of impact. So here's your leadership challenge. Identify one area in your life or business where you've been settling for good enough. Confront the brutal facts. Clarify your hedgehog concept and commit to one small, disciplined step every day that moves your flywheel forward. Build a culture, even if it's just you and one other person, that values discipline, truth, and long-term greatness. Because greatness is not a one-time event. It's a habit, a choice, a commitment to excellence over time. If this summary inspired you, don't let it stop here. Subscribe to the Leadership Code, Accelerators. This is your space to grow as a leader, sharpen your thinking, and transform your influence. Hit the bell icon so you never miss a powerful book summary. Let's make the leap together. From good to great, to a life and legacy that lasts.